Hello, welcome to the latest edition of OnFARM Scotland. I'm Anna Davis and this time we are in rural Aberdeenshire with Ed Smith. Ed is from Norvite, who are specialists in animal nutrition. Norvite have a really positive story to tell, all about the development of their new cattle feed product, NEOLac. NEOLac replaces soya and controversial palm oil products, which are often imported from places like South America and Indonesia, with cold-pressed rapeseed oil, which is all grown by farmers within just a few miles of this very plant. NEOLac is a brilliant Scottish sustainability success story. Oh gosh, a bit of a tongue twister there. And Ed took time out to show me how it's produced, starting with the very moment the lorry load of oilseed rape first arrives at the plant.
So we keep a sample of every load that's delivered.
Yeah, so here we are, the very beginning. Those are the little black rape seeds. Yeah.
It comes with a approximate analysis, so we know the moisture content, the oil content, the protein content, and the ash content before it arrives. We do a further physical inspection. We're looking for as clean a sample of black seeds without any red seeds, which would tend to indicate that it's been harvested a little immature.
Well, to the uninitiated eye, it looks pretty good.
Yeah. The seed arrives and we tip it in here. This is a covered floor-level pit.
It's kind of like a variation of a cattle grid to look at. Everything can fall through and get directed straight into the mill.
Lorries come with a grain sock, so there's very little, there's no spillage. It's conveyed immediately out into the silo outside, which holds 150 tonnes. Would you like to see it?
Yes, please. So we're going outside, still spitting with rain, but there's some blue sky, and we're standing next to the enormous silver silo. Ed, you were saying that there's an automatic process that transports it from when the lorries dump it down there into the silo.
Yeah, so it goes, this is basically where we have our raw seed supply on site. You switch on the intake system and it's conveyed and elevated up into the silo. The plant itself has separate day bins which automatically fill.
You can smell the oil, and it's I would say it's got a slightly sweeter smell than normally I'd associate with rapeseed oil. It's lovely. It's really lovely. I can now see a mini conveyor belt going, which I presume is how the oilseed rape gets into this building.
Yeah, so if you look above the presses, we've got 3 presses. Each have a capacity of 500 kilos an hour. The bins above hold 6 tonnes of seed, so enough for approximately 12 hours. And they fill automatically, so when the bottom probe says the bin's empty, it switches on an automatic refilling system, which takes the seed out of the silo, through a sieve, and up into the bin above. It all runs through gravity into the press. The vast majority, if not all, of the rape meal that is available for UK animal feed is produced in plants where they use a solvent extraction method. They break the seed and boil it with a hexane, which drives off the oil. It acts as a solvent to drive the oil out of the meal. It's got almost no oil left in it. Our process is a mechanical extraction. We actually use pressure to crush and burst the seeds to force the oil out of the seeds, which means we leave about 12% oil in the meal. Basically, the seed falls in here. It goes in through a magnet. You know, the last thing we want is any metal in there.
Oh, I see, of course.
So that little screw conveyor just slowly encourages it along.
Right.
Where it falls into the capture hoppers underneath. You get the meal coming off this side of the presses, which falls onto the 3 conveyor belts, which takes it away into the blending plant. And the oil is captured in these stainless steel vessels along here, which also have probes on. When they get to a certain height, it opens a valve at the bottom and pumps the oil away into the crude oil tank, ready for filtration. This is actually about as noisy as it gets.
Is it? Yeah. How long ago was it that you installed all of this? How long is it since you started using rapeseed?
towards the end of 2015 when we first started crushing.
Yeah.
We started with one press, but we built the plant to accommodate 3. We've just added additional machines, just literally lifted them onto the platform into place because these are quite expensive. This is the Neo Pro, which is the meal straight off the press. We've taken the seed, we've crushed it, and we get 2/3 of this and 1/3 of oil.
This is almost slaty and flaky, huge flakes of meal with an almost leathery texture, but crumbly at the same time.
The cold pressing process produces a flake, the meal in a flake form. That's 30% protein, 12 to 14% oil. So whilst it doesn't look oily, the oil is still, encapsulated within the matrix of the meal.
Oh, I see. Yes, it does look very dry and quite crumbly.
Looks quite dry, but when you analyse it, it's actually quite oily. It's worth more nutritionally because it's got that extra energy content.
So the fact that you've got higher nutritional value left in that meal, what benefit does that deliver on a dairy farm then?
Okay, so in a high-yielding dairy cow, particularly in early lactation, when intake is the limiting factor, they need to use very nutrient-dense ingredients to enable the cow to produce an enormous amount of milk that she starts producing straight away. That's really where we get the benefit. This is the highest energy ingredient that we have.
Yeah.
It's about 15 megajoules per kilogram of dry matter. There isn't any other ingredients that offer that level of energy content apart from when you look at pure fats.
Yes, yeah. And high-yielding animals in particular are monitored so carefully through robotic systems, for example, that it's easy to monitor that yield and see the knock-on benefit.
Yeah. And if you can't feed the cow enough energy, she will strip it off her own back.
Yeah.
Which leads to problems with getting back into calf and all that type of stuff. So
yes, absolutely.
It's really key to produce a diet that is meeting her nutritional requirements.
I can see a huge number of different Norvite blends as you can picture the white sacks that you would imagine seed and fertiliser to be stored in. And then as I look to the other side of the shed, I can see about 6 or 7 different compartments with concrete panels, each containing a different ingredient by the look of things, and a really large tractor just heading right for us at the moment.
Don't worry, we've got the high vis on.
Yeah, quite safe.
Even though it's raining, we're in the middle of a normal harvest in Aberdeenshire. We've got, I think, barley here coming from over near New Deer, straight off the combine from yesterday, which was actually quite a nice day for combining.
So we're just moving from one shed into the next one. It's similar, but on maybe an even larger scale, and the bays are bigger, the pile of meal is bigger, and as you can hear, the noises are increasing as well, so we'll find out round the corner why that is.
We're busy crushing barley over there. We mix feed in this machine here in 8-ton batches. Quite a simple operation, really. We use up to 10 different ingredients, a lot of them locally produced. So we've got sugar beet, oats, distiller's grains from Strathclyde. This is wheat feed from Kirkcaldy. We do have 1 or 2 more exotic ingredients like flake maize and peas, which we get from Yorkshire, and molasses, which goes on everything. And obviously minerals that we manufacture over at Inch incorporated into all of the feeds that we make. So this is oats. Oats are starting to get a little bit harder to come by for animal feed. They're having a major renaissance in the human food market.
Yes.
So for making into animal feed, we tend to get the ones that aren't quite good enough to make flaked oats for human food. We think they're a great ingredient. We don't need to process them. We use them mostly in sheep feeds and lamb feeds, and actually oats, or corn as it is called in the northeast of Scotland, was the mainstay of sheep feed historically. And not actually many other companies that use oats in their feed, but we do, and they look fantastic in our blends. This is pretty much... There's actually two sources of distillers' grains left in Scotland now. One is from the North British distillery in Edinburgh. Mm-hmm. These are from the Strathclyde distillery. They're getting very expensive because they're quite rare. But they're a lovely product. They're actually made from the distillation of wheat to make spirit.
And they're a paler but larger version of the sugar beet pellets.
Which is the...
I don't know what that noise is, but is he emptying something?
He's just making sure the bin's empty.
Definitely empty now, I think. Yeah. It strikes me that everything that we've looked at comes from fairly close by, and I would think that that's one of the philosophies and the ethos behind the Norvite business. Would that be true? And can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, very much so. We have always endeavoured to produce feed that's made with locally sourced ingredients wherever we can. Obviously, the rape meal is the NeoPro's produced very, very locally.
So the NEOLac is we've talked about how it's so crucial for sustainability as well as for very many other reasons, and you work with local farmers who are all close by to produce that rapeseed for you, oilseed rape.
Yeah.
The alternative to rapeseed meal is soybean meal, which we've discussed. That was previously coming from where exactly?
Soya is either from North or South America. You can also buy maize gluten meal, usually from North America. Sunflower extract, which comes from Europe or Eastern Europe. Palm kernel, which comes from Indonesia or Malaysia.
Gosh, yeah.
So look on the ingredient list from companies that are making feeds where they're located near ports, and they'll tend to use a basket of imported products from all over the place.
But contrast that with the 15-mile radius that all of your rapeseed comes from. Ed, we've literally seen tractors coming in with deliveries. We've seen your storage facilities. We've seen the press. Can you now show us the finished NEOLac product?
Yep, it's just outside.
Excellent, thank you.
Are you superstitious?
My mum would be, but I'm not.
You're not? Right, okay, we go that one then. This is NeoPro. And
yes.
This is NEOLac.
From a distance it looks like tiny slate flakes, but obviously when you get up closer you can see it's got a much more of a greeny colour to it, almost flecky, green and black flecky. And if you've ever used rapeseed oil in cooking, there's a definite resemblance from the smell. They're not the same, but there's a definite resemblance. I think you would identify the rapeseed oil within there.
So the process that we use obviously breaks down the larger flakes into more of a crumble without turning it into a powder. So it's easy to handle, should flow well out of a bin without breaking into a meal where it falls through the TMR, typically fed as part of a TMR ration. And if you have very mealy ingredients, they tend to fall to the bottom in a regular quantity.
So it stays mixed in with the ration. Else, so this pile, this is ready to go, as it were.
That's ready to go.
Yeah. This is OnFARM Scotland, where we showcase the very best of food and rural business. I'm Anna, and I hope you're enjoying being with us so far. We've just been hearing from Ed Smith from Norvite, who's taken us around the production plant where he cold presses locally produced oilseed rape and other ingredients to make his NEOLac animal feed. We also spent some time in Ed's office, away from the loud machinery, and Ed told us how his Norvite journey began.
I'm from a family farm in North Yorkshire. My first job, once I'd done a few years of travelling, was as a nutritionist at a company called Farmway in Darlington, a cooperative, where I worked for 3 years before I was offered a job up here with Norvite. After a few years, I progressed through the business to some extent. We managed to get the opportunity to do a management buyout in 2005. We've added a retail business, mobile milling, additional blending plants, in addition to our core business, which is manufacture of mineral supplements. So, in the last 14 years, goodness me, we have trebled in size. So we're up to about 75 staff.
Would you say that the management buyout was driven by your passion for the nutrition side of the business rather than your desire to run a company?
I think it's